give him 5 minutes.
We can give them Rich.
We're back in session. We do apologize. Rich,
Bob.
if you would, sir, please, state your name and,
Thank you. Rich LaPickle of Monroeville. I don't know, maybe I got a bigger mouth than I thought, but remember I was talking last month about Monroeville Boulevard?
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
And I said, one of you
Can't
please.
hear him. Get to this one.
Oh, this one? Okay. I came up here and talked about Monroeville Boulevard, that it was a mess. It's been a mess for several years, and it needs to be fixed and addressed, and in some capital budget, and if we need to take it over, fine, do it. And I know that you've deferred capital budget until the new council comes on board.
May I interrupt you for
Go
one
right ahead,
second?
yeah.
I see Rich Fitzgerald October 10th on, that's one of the issues that since you brought up last
Okay,
month.
good. Oh, good.
And that's one of the issues I will be seeing our county
Okay.
executive.
Do I blame you for the paint job?
Probably. Why not?
Okay, well,
Everybody else blames
whatever.
you for everything
Well,
else.
you know, about a week ago, I'm driving Monroeville Boulevard, and I think it's about a week ago, and I'm looking, and I see this horrible Monroeville Boulevard that I see every day, morning and night, and lo and behold, what do I see? I see new lines painted. Of course, the job isn't complete because the arrows aren't done, but new lines on a lousy road, and I'm thinking, oh my God, a silk cat on a pig, okay? It's like, you know, maybe it's done for safety, and maybe, I don't know why, but you look at it and it's crappy, okay? Now, so please keep that in mind, and when you talk with them, you know, bring that
Richard,
up.
I'm clear on the issue on that one.
I interject one
go ahead.
thing. The lines within traffic signals, the turn arrows, stop bars, those are the municipality's responsibility. That's why the county didn't do them.
All right. See, and why is there that split? Is it because you can go downstairs and control the...
Any type of markings that are on a traffic signal permit plan
Okay.
are the responsibility of the owner, which is the municipality.
Okay. I knew that. I've just been off council a long time. No, I'm just kidding. No, I did not know that, or I forgot
Yes.
that. Now, is the plan to go ahead and to repaint those as well?
They're on a cycle through Public Works. I don't know where they're at with the painting. They typically do on weekend mornings because of the volume of
Right.
traffic on 22 and Minerva Boulevard.
Okay. I know, it's just, you know, I drive it every day, and one thing I forgot to mention last month was that Stroshine is not just as bad, it's worse. I make the left onto Stroshine, okay, and there's Miracle Mile on the right, and it looks like it's about to turn into craters and landmines and so forth. And the same thing, when you're on 22, you make the left turn up Stroshine with Miracle Mile now on your left, that part is also a mess as well. And I think that's probably worse than Monroeville Boulevard.
Just so you know, Rich, on Strohsign, my understanding is the work's going to start very soon on that.
Okay.
I don't have the exact date, but I'm hearing very, very soon, like in the next week or 2 or 3.
Okay, good, good. Before it becomes impossible to do it, and what is it? The coal, we have to go to coal patch, which will be useless because it'll just come up and then, if the old Farmer's Almanac and the woolly worms are correct, then we're going to have a horrible winter.
No, we're not, Rich, don't say that.
I kind of like snow, you know. I've been in the Arctic 3 times, so it doesn't make any difference to me. Okay. Although I sympathize with the folks who were here about their water problem, in a sense, I'm kind of glad that we're hearing more of those things. I mean, I wish they didn't have the problem, but I think the things that we should be talking about up here are infrastructural items and not the stuff that's been going on. That said, okay, I'm going to go a little bit below the line, okay, about what's been going on here the past couple of years, especially the past year, the past 10 months, because the last time I addressed this issue was in January, okay, about the $67,000. Poor Lynette has been at the center of the storm. She has been complimented by those who are in favor of her, and she's been denigrated by those who think she's incompetent or whatever. And she has maintained throughout all of this that the decisions that have been made were hers. Okay, that there weren't 4 members of council, there wasn't a cabal that went to her and said, do this, fire that one, do this, that these have been her decisions based on her evaluation of conditions during her experience as municipal secretary, during which she, and planning secretary during the past 25 years when she observed a lot, as interim manager last year, working with me on with the finance authority, as interim manager again, and then as permanent manager. So for good or bad, she has taken the responsibility, and that's, you know, that's a considerable thing to do, okay? And I will work with that and say that there have not been 4 members of council. There has not been a majority who has come to her and said, fire this one, hire that one, and rehire that one, just for the sake of argument. So what you could say is that For good or bad, Lynette is the proximate cause of the changes, the reorganizations, okay? But does that mean that there aren't other people responsible? And I would say no, that does not exonerate the current majority on council for the things that have been happening the past couple of years. Why is that? I'm going to focus on the past year, during which most of that time Lynette was either interim or permanent manager. The current majority, or any majority in a body, hires a person that shares their vision of how government should be run. What does that mean? That means there are 4 or more people in a body, in this case of this particular body, 4 in particular, who had a vision that I would imagine matched Lynette's, and they saw her as the person to execute their will, the collective will, and operate the municipality as they saw fit to operate it. And although there have been individual comments on members of the majority, for the most part, they've been treated as a collective. Well, I want to deviate from that and decompose the majority and give the folks at home my understanding of that majority, not in its aggregate, but in its individual parts. We have an extreme right-wing conservative who, for the past year or two, has bored the hell out of us with misinterpretations of the Federalist Papers. My son is a historian, a professional historian, not just a student. He is a consultant in an international firm that produces educational videos. He has presented papers at symposia, and last year I was in this room, he was at home watching the meeting and texted me and he said, "What the hell is that guy talking about with respect to the Federalist Papers?" Misinterpretations, misapplications, misunderstandings of the Federalist Papers. And unfortunately, not all of you are here to hear that. Maybe the DVD needs to be sent home if not everybody is watching tonight. We have an extreme left-wing liberal on council, okay, who regales us every month with the People's Republic of Vegetation, putting us just as asleep as the extreme right-wing conservative does with his misinterpretation of the Federalist Papers. By the way, I wish he would stick to the funny papers and not the Federalist Papers. At least we might be amused the next 3 months. So we hear about fruits and vegetables, and meanwhile the whole town is getting the zucchini from this majority. The third member with whom I have umbrage, though not personal, because at least for the past 4 years there's been a certain deference toward me and at least a considerable appreciation for my assistance 4 years ago in securing the Republican nomination for a council seat. That person 4 years ago, right out here, not 30 feet away, looked me in the eye and said, "I damn well better do a good job because I know in 4 years you'll help me out." Well, guess what? I like being helpful. I was helpful again, but maybe not as helpful as the individual thought for that person's own reelection. The fourth member of this cabal, okay, personally, I am very hurt, sad that this individual has gone the way that the individual has. I've known the person for 25 years as a servant of this community, a volunteer, a great person who wouldn't take a dime from anybody for anything. And how the individual threw his lot in with this nefarious cabal, okay, is beyond me. And my God, I've kept my counsel for the past 10 months, but it's been brewing in me like a volcano. And Etna explodes tonight. Thank God for May. I'm looking forward to November and January.
Lori, I can't say your last name, I apologize. Okay?
I'm sorry, Lori.
Kluska, okay.
Kusa.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Lynette, I had called you before, and I had asked you to look into a couple things. I guess part of what I was questioning was, I couldn't understand why the last meeting, there was such a push to get Mr. Yacom on the zoning board. And then I found out afterwards
Please
that
do.
is actually a paid board position?
That is correct.
How much is that board position pay?
$150 a month.
Okay, somebody had told me 250, so, and then somebody else told me 150. I was wondering, with the, either current council or new council, is there a way that we could make an ordinance that if you are on any position, council, board, anything, that if you get any type of stipend, that has to go pay any type of taxes that you're owed, that you owe Monroeville, or Gateway, since we're one big family?
That would be certainly up to this body of council.
Okay. And then I guess I have another question, because, you know, he's not a private residence anymore, resident. He's like fair game. He comes up here and he talks all the time, and this is what I spoke to you about, regarding, he has all this insider information. Where does he get all this information? I thought that it was 3 dispatchers fired. I didn't know that there were 3 firemen, and I helped the firemen run their bingo. So I guess I didn't know that. Until tonight, I didn't know that one of them got their job back. But yet, Mr. Yakem did. There was something about a council member being threatened or threatened another councilman. The only thing I knew is what was on the news about Lynette. How does Mr. Yakem get all this information? So my next question is there any type of anti-kickback statute that affects the government here, Mr. Dice?
I'm not sure what an anti-kickback statute.
Like, is it illegal
Ethics?
if Mr. Dice, if Mr. Yakem would be, let's say, appointed to a committee for payment for airing dirty laundry of the council?
This is one that I have never heard of before. I'm trying to help.
Okay,
you.
like in my position, I can't go to a Penguins game. I can't do anything to give one of my clients a benefit. I can't take Penguin tickets so that they get a better discount rate for their medications. I can't give them a better chance at a bid for, to
Pardon my
pave the
ignorance, I don't know
lot.
what you do.
I work for a pharmacy.
Okay.
I can't even, just for them to pave the lot, they can't take me out to dinner. It can't be anything a quid pro quo.
Well, okay, are you making, are you?
I'm making the assumption that it was very, very important for him to get appointed to that committee, the paid committee.
Okay,
So if it would be that he would be the one releasing the information, or information being released to him, and he is the one releasing the information to the press, would that be any type of violation?
if all of the things that you said were true and there was this nefarious plot, I don't know that it would violate the law, but certainly politically, that would be suicide. But I don't know that it's a violation of any law.
Okay.
But I think that in the court of public opinion, people wouldn't like that if everything you said
I
could
just
be
don't
proven.
understand how I want to know the information that, we all want to know it. How does he always know it?
That's the $64,000 question. And I'll be very blunt with you, Lori. He knows probably, gets the information sometimes even quicker than some of us sitting up here as council members.
Well, do we think maybe we should release an independent counsel to find that out?
Well, we certainly don't have the money to do that, that's for sure, but I
Okay,
understand
how about
what
an
you're saying.
internal investigation on how that information is being released? Because obviously, there is a problem with information being released amongst the 7 of you, 8 of you, however many is really sitting
Well,
here.
8.
And that's a problem. That is an absolute problem.
I don't disagree with you. I don't think anybody sitting here or watching on TV disagrees with you either.
I want to hear the information from you two. I don't want to hear it from Mr. Yacob. So I certainly think that you guys need to look into that, because if I think there's a problem with it. I'm pretty sure that all the residents at home think there's a problem with it. I think there's only one resident that doesn't think there's a problem with it. Well, maybe 5 that don't think there's a problem with this. Somebody needs to do something to fix this. Because, first of all, the person that suffered the worst from this was the poor guy in Mr. Griesbach's ward, who did nothing wrong. Sorry, however I say your name. He's the poor individual that suffered from this, and there was such a fight for that. So I would like something, and I asked you before to please look into that, and whenever you're done investigating it, I'd appreciate a phone call back. So, because I just think that it's a shame that this is what it's come down to. But if somebody could look into sponsoring that ordinance.
I just asked Mr. Dice if we were permitted, and I think you just said you can't.
Yeah, let me, is it my turn?
Yeah, I'm asking you
Okay.
if you
I'll
can
always
respond.
Let me say to you that real estate taxes, you cannot garnish wages for real estate taxes. You can't garnish a fee that he may generate from here or some other agency to pay his real estate taxes. There's no law that permits that to happen. That's been looked into and discounted, so you can't do it. On the issue of garnishing for real estate taxes, again, there's just no authority to do it. It can't be done under the law. You made the comment about, well, can we come up with some sort of ordinance that says if you owe taxes, you can't sit on a board, can't get a building permit, can't get any approvals done? That's also been struck by the courts. That's very popular. I mean, I understand from a public perception, that sounds like a good idea. You know, somebody that either owes taxes or owes the municipality for whatever reason, it makes sense that they shouldn't sit on a board commission. They shouldn't be able to get a building permit, shouldn't be able to get an occupancy permit. They shouldn't be able to do shouldn't get the benefits of the town. Unfortunately, the courts don't agree with it. The courts have said, they've struck ordinances down that are like that. We did it in Plum. We did that very thing, and that ordinance was struck down. The courts say that there's not a nexus between the holding of a public office or the acquiring of a public building permit and the payment of taxes, and those two things don't sit in the same room, and as such, they've struck those kinds of things down. That's not a legitimate reason not to issue a building permit or to hold a seat. It doesn't take away from the fact that a person should pay their taxes. Everybody thinks that in this room.
What about a gentleman's handshake between the municipality and the person that does it, that has that you could say,
Certainly.
you can, like a contract that says,
Mr. Yakem could say, Dave Cooker gave his stipend for salary here, and they get a little bit more council every month, I think, to the fire companies. I mean, he could pay, he could.
fantastic guy then.
He could certainly pay his zoning hearing board fee towards taxes voluntarily.
I mean, to me, it would at least be a step in the right direction. For anybody
I'm
that
just here
sits
as a
on any
lawyer.
board. I mean, I didn't know if it was something that could be, maybe it can't be legally done, but a contract could be written up with a gentleman's handshake saying, here's a good faith effort. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address council at this time? It is certainly your opportunity to address council on any issue. There is a gentleman on here, a Steve Rapaski, but he is from Pittsburgh.
He's going to speak on behalf of the B ordinance.
Oh. You just want to hold that to the ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay, we can hold that to
Discuss
the ordinance.
flooding issues, but you can't help me.
Well, we'll close the citizens' night proportion of our meeting, and all members except for Mr. Erb are present. And we'll move over to our minutes of council meeting of August 13, 2013, citizens' night meeting of September 5th, 2013, and as Sharon has stated, that she is still working on our September 10th. So, council, any corrections or additions? Seeing none, we'll move over to our reports of our tax collections. And once again, council, I'll open the floor up to all of you. Seeing none, move over to our payroll report.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
if I could make a comment, under the tax report, the Keystone and the real estate transfer tax numbers weren't available because of our earliness in the month of the meeting. So by Tuesday, we should have those, so it's starred for everyone's knowledge.
Everybody, very good, thank you. Once again, we'll move over to our payroll report. Are there any other corrections or additions or any issues? Seeing none, we'll move over to our list of bills. And Nick, we'll start off with you.
I have one question for the manager. It's not really specific, but I think it's on page 6 and 7. It's the internet for, I believe it's the police and a fire company. But the reason why I'm asking is because we got a letter from Comcast like 2 weeks ago stating that part of the agreement is that they will give free service to our municipal buildings. Is this part of that? Can we make this happen?
Actually, it's just the opposite. Comcast contacted us about the fire departments, that they are actually raising the rate at the fire departments. So there was a chiefs meeting, Mr. Harvey's here, they were supposed to discuss what companies wanted to continue on their own, getting the internet service, and which ones wanted to discontinue. So I'm just waiting to hear back, and it'll actually be,
Okay, well, the letter, I didn't see the letter that had, the one I had was the one from, I forget the
right.
gentleman's
We
name.
have actually been dealing with them through email.
Okay.
And phone calls, of course.
So Comcast, they can't,
They're
they've
not
given as
giving
much
it-
as they're going to give.
Right, it was actually a reduced rate. They're raising it, I believe, to $59 from $29, $39, so, yeah, if you want to, Ron, I know they were making a decision at the Chiefs meeting.
Yeah, what Ms. McKinney
State
is
your
telling you
name,
is true.
State your
This-
name.
Ron Harvey, Chief of Number 5 Fire Company, Monroe.
Sorry, Ron.
It actually started free, all the way back to Delphia Cable. And then when it moved on to another company, they gave it to us at a reduced rate, and now
They're raising it to the full
they're
price.
they're raising it to the full price. I know at my station, we were getting new internet service anyway, so it's actually coming off the municipal. We asked them to hang in there for a month until we got it changed over.
I believe it's station number 1 and 6 that still haven't made their
Yeah, and
decision yet.
our chiefs meeting that was supposed to be, got canceled for a week, so we did,
Okay.
it's next Wednesday. So I don't have anything further on that, but that is indeed what happened, so.
They're actually, not that this has anything to do with that, but Comcast also contacted us about the little boxes that the municipal buildings all use, and they're actually removing those. They're only giving us X amount.
They
So that
apparently
was
did
one
a
of the
usage audit
projects.
and found all this stuff.
Yeah, that we actually went around today to see which boxes we could actually eliminate to get those off the bill, because they're going to
Yeah.
start charging them for us as well.
What would that have been used for? What would the use of the boxes?
Well, without the box now, you can't even play the television. So there's
Yes.
going to be TVs within the
And it was how
municipal
we got
building.
our CAD service and all that. The dispatch stuff came in.
And are we under contract for the municipality with Comcast?
Well, it's a split. I believe it's Verizon comes in and Comcast.
I lost track of it, but we used to have it was, correct me, it was in the agreement that they would provide us that stuff at that rate. That is since,
It's
And that was less than a year and a half ago.
2 years ago. Year
It was our cable, our recent cable agreement, so they're actually changing that.
Right.
yeah.
Anything else, Nick?
No other questions this evening.
Lois?
Yes, Mayor. I had some of these addressed already, questions that I think were on page 25 about CASA fire equipment. I do understand what the 7,567 was, that was the ISO flow test for the pumpers.
Yes, that is correct. The
Okay.
pump testing.
And I have a couple more, I think. On page 30, there is a $600 charge for engine 51 from McGill's Auto Service. Again, I think I've asked this before because it may be a distance problem there, but a $600 tow, I got to try to find what the circumstances were for that.
I'll check into that one. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Let's see. I think the only other thing I was going to do is just point out to year-to-date on the revenue end, it looks like there are just indications under fire building code enforcement that we're bringing more revenue in on things like fire official permits and miscellaneous, and an enormous amount that's coming in, like 422, almost 423% of the revenue that you're expected to bring in. I just wanted to point that out. That sounds like they're being pretty efficient. Some other things, I'm sure, are just a product of the market, like building permits. Well, if there's not a very big market for building, I guess.
What page are you on, Lois?
I'm page 3, year-to-date. Fire building code enforcement.
Okay.
Okay, and that's all.
That's it, Lance?
That's all.
Jim?
I have nothing, sir.
Diane?
None.
Steve?
I have nothing on the bills.
Clarence? Budget transfers. Clarence, we'll start off with you. Steve?
Nothing.
Diane?
None.
Jim?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing,
sir.
All righty. We'll go over to bids and proposals.
Yes, we had talked back in the month of August, we approved an ordinance, actually ordinance number 2591, that allocated money out of the capital improvements budget for several items within the municipal building, 3 of them being the fob system for the municipal building, the UPS system for the municipal building, and the telephone system. And one of the requests from council was to make sure it was going to come in front of council for their approval. Over those last 2 months, we've actually gone out to different vendors and have secured who we're going to purchase the information from. And because we thought it would be a bidding item, and council requested that, it, however, turned out to be all 3 of them turned out to be state contract items. So I just wanted to present to council. There's a spreadsheet here of the company, and attached is the actual quotes from the company that actually show the amounts. So I wanted to present that to council. I really don't need your approval for it, but I just wanted to let you know what was going on with that, being that was one of the items that you had requested.
Questions or comments on these items before you, council? Seeing none, we'll move over to resolutions, and again, Lynette, if you would.
The first item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution authorizing the distribution of general municipal pension system aid pursuant to Municipal Pension Plan Act 205 of 1984. This is basically a housekeeping item we do every October. The amounts are in the resolution, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions or comments on this item before you, council? Seeing none, Lynette, if you would.
The next item is a resolution approving a facility use agreement between Monroeville Baseball Association and the municipality of Monroeville for the use of ball fields, concession stands, and other related areas. This has been on your work session agenda for the last 2 months, and council has elected to remove that. I believe, and Councilman Griesbach, you could chime in, I believe we're ready to move forward, and
Well, I'll update everyone. Our Recreation and Parks Advisory Board, it meets on the first Monday of the month, or the first full. Yes, it's actually this Monday. So actually, we're going to meet this coming Monday, which is before the council voting session. Now, as long as they're on the agenda today for Tuesday's voting meeting, we can make modifications to it based on what the Recreation Advisory Board comes back with. We were giving them the opportunity for baseball and soccer to go over the agreements, and also for the Recreation Board to fully discuss it. So I will give a report on Tuesday based on what the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board comes back with after our Monday meeting, and then we'll take it from there. We can always make modifications to it on Tuesday, just as long as it's on the agenda for today. So.
Is there any way that you might be able to email that to us before, so we can review it before the meeting, possibly, if there is any changes?
Tuesday morning if there's changes.
Yeah, I could maybe coordinate that with Mr. Estock and Lynette.
Yeah, If there's any changes, I'll get the information.
Because the rec
and
department
get
would be
it to you
making the
guys on
changes.
Tuesday morning.
I wouldn't be making the changes myself. It would
I'd
be-
like just to see whatever.
I agree,
may
absolutely.
be prior to the meeting.
Any questions or comments further on this item? Lynette, if you would.
The next item is basically identical, a resolution approving a facility use agreement between Monroeville Soccer Club and the municipality of Monroeville for the use of ball fields, concession stands, and other related areas. Exactly the same situation.
And if you will go on to the next one,
And
please.
then a resolution establishing a scrap metal policy. As council recalls, during our audit in our manager's letter, this was one of the items that was brought forward to our attention. We now have a resolution in place of how that will take place and a policy that goes along with that.
Questions or comments, council? Seeing none, ordinance, Mr. Dice.
Yeah, the first ordinance is an ordinance amending 1443 of the Monroeville zoning ordinance as amended, setting forth standards and control and management for honeybees within the municipality and prescribing applicable definitions.
Mark, if you want to maybe start off a little bit, I know you're familiar with this. And then obviously, you'll be there to answer any questions from council.
Actually, I think Lois would be the appropriate person to
Okay.
speak to this about. She's the one that actually instituted the
Okay,
whole
sorry,
idea, and then we got Steve involved and myself, because it's an
Very
amendment
good.
to the zoning ordinance.
Please
Well-
state your name for the record.
Sure, my name is Stephen Rapaski.
Okay, very good.
And Stephen Rapaski is a master beekeeper, has been professionally involved with the beekeeping, which is regulated by state law. And as we've read in other communities, there have been ordinances put forth on the proper way to foster the keeping of bees. I just wanted to take one little snippet of information that I get that hits home. 1 out of 3 every bites of food you and I eat is pollinated by honeybees, and I think that a lot of people forget that wild bees are a great part of pollinators. Pollination is therefore something of concern when we have colony collapse and those things. So I think a lot of the municipalities have taken it upon themselves to responsibly have something guiding beekeeping. And we certainly met with Mr. Rapaski, full of knowledge on the subject, and we wanted to carefully do this in accordance with what the best practices are. And so I think that you could explain that best.
Sure. Thank you for having me here tonight and to address you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council. As I mentioned, my name is Steve Rapaski. I am a certified master beekeeper through the Eastern Apicultural Society. It's kind of a higher level training. There's 19 of us in Pennsylvania, 179 of us in the United States. So it's that kind of gives you a level of knowledge that I have about beekeeping. I've been beekeeping since I was the age of 4. I'm also the president of Berg Bees, which is an urban beekeeping group that represents Pittsburgh beekeepers as well as Allegheny County beekeepers. When Councilwoman Drumheller approached me about Monroeville having an interest in this, I certainly jumped at the opportunity to help. As she mentioned, municipalities have been looking at beekeeping in general because, as you all are familiar with, beekeeping or honeybees in general have been experiencing a huge decline in the last 6 years. And it's certainly hitting home here in Allegheny County as well as just Pennsylvania in general. With that, beekeeping has had a huge uprise because of this colony collapse disorder. And with that, municipalities, townships, et cetera, have looked and said, okay, this is new to us. We need to have a handle on what's going on. I've assisted Forest Hills, the Township of Findlay. We're working with Hampton Township and a couple other different municipalities in writing the ordinances. I also sit on the Pennsylvania State Beekeepers Association Legislative Committee and dealing with this on a statewide level. So the ordinance is here. I assisted in developing the language with input from Councilwoman and also Mark Schufo, your zoning officer, and I'm here to answer any questions and concerns you might have.
Well, what does that mean to Monroeville, though? I mean, obviously, I know the importance of having honeybees. Obviously, I think everybody does. But what are you going to do for us?
What the ordinance is going to do for you guys is going to just allow you to have some type of oversight or management on beekeeping in general, in the sense of best management practices. So as it stands now, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilwoman, beekeeping is it's not permitted, it's not addressed in your ordinance, right?
I think Mr. Chufo knows the law inside and out.
Yeah, I can't refresh my memory.
The municipality is taking the position that if you want to have bees in your yard, you have to meet the accessory structure setbacks as set forth in ordinance 1443. Right now, if you want a beehive in your yard, there's no setback regulations. There's no regulations whatsoever on how to maintain them.
You're saying to purposely have bees.
Right, to purposely to manage beekeeping honeybee colonies, yes. So it doesn't, the code doesn't address currently. So as it stands now, you could put a honeybee colony in your front yard and call it a day.
Yeah.
But with this ordinance, what it does is basically allows regulation based on best management practices set forth and developed by the Department of Agriculture, which oversees honeybees.
Now, would that resident be educated to that effect?
And that's
by
what's all,
you?
yeah, and that's what's all
Okay, I have
in
not had a chance
in the
to-
ordinance.
It's a requirement before we
Yeah,
would
it's
issue a
it's a
permit.
requirement for education to show proof of a class. It has to be in the backyard, no side yard, I think. There's a setback requirement. What it does is it confines somebody who wants to keep honeybees in a managed way. It allows them, just like you put up a deck or a fence, you have certain requirements.
I'm clear.
So that's what this
Very
does
good.
for you folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments, Council?
I have some questions about the actual, like, the setbacks, and
Sure.
Everything's very thorough, and I agree that, it's good for us to get a handle on all of these things. I'm just curious about as far as the setbacks, and just for the listening audience as well, and also the property sizes, the lot areas that allow this. This is section 2B, number 2, and it's any lot with 7,500 square feet of lot area, which is a pretty small lot. I mean, it's probably every lot in Monroeville, I'm guessing.
Well, that's the typical required size for a lot in the R2 zoning district.
And then there's a 10-foot setback.
Correct.
Sure.
Which, from any
Property line.
property line.
Correct.
So those two, to adjust those questions, so those two numbers are based on best management practices set forth by state. As far as the property size, Department of Agriculture suggests that no more than 4 hives per quarter acre be allowed. And that kind of falls within this number that of 7,500 square feet. That being said, the average beekeeper in an urban, suburban area typically will only keep 2 to 3 hives on their entire property because it's a hobby. It's not a full-time income. It's not a commercial business. It's just something just like you're keeping a dog or guinea pigs or anything like that. As far as the 10-foot setback, that's also based on research from beekeepers and researchers across the United States that when a colony of honeybees, a beehive is set in a proper manner, it's called siting a hive, that within 10 to 12 feet, those honeybees have reached a flight pattern of 6 feet or higher. So with a 10-foot setback tied into the code where it says that there's a section there with flyway barriers, which is section 2, part B, number 4, all these things tie in that we don't want the honeybees to be flying at basically knee height across your neighbor's property. So that the 10-foot setback combined with a direction that the hive is facing along with flightway barriers, those honeybees get above head height by the time they reach the property line. Therefore, it's above and beyond everybody's head, and there's no risk. Now, there's no risk anyways, but what it does is avoid bees bumping into people, going across sidewalks, driveways, those types of things. So what we're doing is forcing the bees up into the air, and there's no issue at that point. That's where those two numbers come from.
Okay. And I appreciate that. Now, the only way that we can, I don't know who this is a question for, if it's Mr. Dice or Mr. Shufo, or even you maybe, Stephen, but the only thing we can regulate is like the zoning, like the setbacks and the sizes. Everything else goes to the Department of Agriculture, correct? Like there's nothing.
Yeah, for the right. So the Department of Agriculture has state apiary inspectors, state beekeeping inspectors that generally come once a year and inspect folks' hives. They inspect for diseases and things along those lines. They also regulate the registration of honeybees. So as a beekeeper, I have to register all of my hives every 2 years. So they make sure they oversee that. On a municipality level, you would be basically regulating the code itself, setbacks, flyaway barriers, everything that's sitting here in the ordinance with ultimate oversight by the Department of Ag if there becomes an issue.
So will this be something that if somebody wants to put a beehive in their yard, they would have to come in front of Planning Commission?
No.
Would they have to get a permit through you and have you come out and?
Administratively, yes, correct.
Just like
And
building a deck
They
or
would
a
have to submit a
garage?
survey and indicate where the hive's going to be within that survey, and it has to meet the requirements of the ordinance.
And they have to show proof of taking a beekeeping class as well.
Yeah, I read that.
That addresses the education question you had, Mayor.
Yes.
So if we allow this and there are issues, I don't know, you're having a picnic and the bees are all over everybody's cups or whatever, I mean, would we be able to address that?
Sure, I could address it right now. If you have a picnic and there's bees all over the place, they're not honeybees, they're yellow jackets.
Is that right?
Yeah, honeybees are extremely docile.
I don't know my bees.
Well, and this is where education, this is
Birds
where
and bees.
education is going to come into play. Yeah. Yellow jackets live in the ground. They're the ones that come after your ham sandwiches, your pop, your beer, that type of thing. Honeybees are strictly after the nectar sources.
Here,
of
I'm
flowers.
always blaming the honeybees.
Yep, don't blame the honeybees. Yellow jackets, wasps, and hornets are very
Now you're
aggressive by
educated,
nature.
Steve, like the rest of us, because I didn't know any of that either.
It's common. Society has lumped anything that stings as a bee, and the biologist in me, I'm trained. I went to Penn State and got my degree in wildlife biology. The biologist in me, that's my pet peeve. It's not a bee; it's a yellow jacket. Too distinct. But that being said, Mark asked me to address this too. Actually, as far as being of help, certainly one thing with honeybees is part of their nature is to swarm in the springtime, and swarming isn't a bad thing. It's their way of reproducing on a large non-sexual scale, and that includes the queen taking off with half the colony, looking for a new place to set up a home. The other half stays home, raises a new queen, and they do their thing. In that case, the swarms are very docile, they're very gentle, their stomachs are filled with honey, etc. That being said, we have a huge network of beekeepers in Allegheny County. So all it takes is a resident to call one of us. Mark will have my number on file, and we just, within an hour or two, we could have somebody there to deal with the situation. So there's certainly a support network as far as issues that aren't really issues. And that being said, you guys are probably picturing, oh my God, there's going to be beehives everywhere.
No, I just didn't know.
I can tell you this. Pittsburgh has roughly 60 colonies of honeybees on 35 different beekeeping properties. It's not that big of a deal. Monroeville, I think, has 3 beekeepers currently, and I've had 1 other show interest. So you're not going to get overwhelmed with beekeepers. But what this does do, it provides guidance to those interested.
Sure. No, but I just was laughing because I'm sure I'll speak for myself, I didn't know hardly any of that stuff, so I just thought a bee's a bee's a bee,
Well, I'd be happy to put on an educational program for you.
Any other questions or comments for this gentleman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to add, too, at any point you guys have questions from now until when you vote on it, Mark has my phone number and email. I'd be more than happy to speak with you guys personally if you have any other questions.
Thank you, but I think you did a great job.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Dice.
The second ordinance is an ordinance to provide for an amendment to the 2013 general fund budget.
Lynette, if you would maybe give a real snapshot of what that means for our listening public and the folks sitting here.
This, Mayor, is again a transfer for our general fund budget, $15,000 from patrol salary, detective overtime, again to outside legal service, and then $8,300 from insurance deductibles to liability and property insurance. Basically just underfunded with a combination of deductibles from lawsuits and accident deductibles.
Questions or comments on this ordinance before you?
Well, didn't we just do 15,000 from that last month?
Yes, it wasn't enough.
Okay. So we're at 30,000.
No, it's a lot more than that, Steve.
Well, I meant just from the
Closer to
detective
100.
overtime transfer.
Now, I assume, Lynette, since they've submitted everything to HHS, there'll be no further bills?
We got a bill on Friday from Dickie McCain for the month of August. I don't have it in front of me, but it was $1,000-some, and I did forward that to mayor and council already.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this ordinance, council? Please.
Yes, Mayor. Is the outside legal count, is that just Dickie McCamey, or is that a few of the outside legal?
It's separate, it's all of them. It's the civil service, it's the OPEB attorney, it's.
Okay, it's a combination.
It's a combination.
Well, you didn't
of
say
everyone.
that, okay. that's-
Vicki McCaney was 1,697.50 for
That's correct.
this month. Or,
For the month of August.
yeah, month of August.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, the insurance deductible, that was That was not the health insurance deductibles?
No, that's actually like liability for
we already had.
lawsuits. We have a deductible for that, so that's to offset that amount.
So we're just confident that we won't need that money?
From,
That was based upon Joe Sedlak's recommendation.
Okay, so it's there and, okay. Very good.
Any other questions or comments, council, on this ordinance before you? Mr. Dice.
The third ordinance is an ordinance to provide for an amendment to 2008-2010 capital improvement budget.
Lynette, if you would, please. give
This
us
is
a
an ordinance amending the 2008-2010 capital improvement, not the current. This is the money that we took, the telephone, the fob system, the things that we talked about a little bit earlier under bids and proposals. The telephone system actually came in under the $80,000, and the fob system came in over the amount, so it's just a matter of transferring the $12,000 within that budget.
Questions or comments, council? Mr. Dice.
4 is an ordinance to provide for the amendment to the 2011-2013 capital improvement budget.
Once again, if you'll give us a brief.
Sure. This is two transfers, $135,000 from the Monroeville Boulevard Wingate Drive capital improvement item and $51,000 from the road resurfacing program to the light or intersection at Route 22 in Value City Plaza. Basically, when the capital improvements amounts were done years ago, or a few years back, the amounts have now increased. So we're transferring it all to Value City Plaza to do that intersection, and then Monroeville Boulevard Wingate will be reallocated for the next capital improvement project.
Questions or comments, council?
What's the issue with Monroeville Boulevard and Wingate? That needs to,
Signal upgrade.
that's a signal
Yeah,
upgrade? Okay.
both of them are signal upgrades.
Any other questions or comments, council? Mr. Dice.
Yes, the next ordinance is an ordinance amending the code of the municipality of Monroeville, ordinances number 2361, 2416, 2520, 2533, and 2574 by amending and restating the rules and regulations of the Civil Service Commission.
Lynette, if you'll give a brief description.
Yes, basically, these are amendments that were brought forward from the Civil Service Commission. The first amendment would be the changing of the testing scores for our promotions. That would be for corporals, sergeants, lieutenants, and now detectives. We had the percentage set at 80% when the ordinance was rewritten a few years ago. We have been doing testing for our corporals with no success of that 80% rate. So the Civil Service Commission actually did a study, if you flip to the end of the ordinance, and actually studied departments around the community and the rates of the minimum score for passing. We had 80%. There's only 4 other departments that have 80, 4 that have 75, 13 that have a 70% passing, and 1 that have a 60% passing. So the Civil Service is recommending that number be changed from an 80% to a 70%. And then in addition, we've talked about this several times, adding the detective language, so that is actually part of the civil service testing process, and that actually would fall right into the line or the section of promotions.
Questions or comments, council?
Yeah, so we're lowering to 70.
We are lowering the 80% of passing on the written side and
To 70.
changing it to 70, yes.
And that would put us in line with other communities.
That is, yeah, if you look at the chart in the back, Councilman Duncan,
Right, I've looked at that, but I mean, that would, okay.
Correct.
Now,
And
our
that's actually
salaries,
what
our salary's much above other communities, but
Did the Civil Service Commission compare the surrounding forces, police departments that maybe have the lower passing score? Did they compare the salaries?
I
Or was
wouldn't
it
know
just-
that answer. I would
Okay.
not know that answer, as far as salary is concerned, if that was even considered.
Okay.
I can
As far as
find out
comparing
from
apples,
them.
as far as comparing apples
I
to
mean,
apples.
it would be nice if this, the service would contact us or give us some information on this.
You mean the civil service? You want them to come to the Tuesday meeting? I could request that their
Well, I
attorney-
see your paperwork, but this is the first time I'm seeing this. It would have been nice to have been able to look at this earlier, but I guess that's not an option.
This is essentially changing because we voted, this council voted on 2574. That was the last one. It was maybe a few months ago. It was this year.
I believe so, yes.
So really, it's the same thing, but what we're doing is we're adding detective
The
to-
whole position of detective testing.
'Cause it
under
wasn't- it
civil
wasn't in the
service,
privacy-
It was not
it
incorporated
wasn't in the-
into the civil service ordinance.
All right, because there was some confusion there, so hopefully this clears that up.
Exactly.
So it's now going to be in there, wasn't before. And then the lowering of the scores just for the promotions, not for new officers being hired.
That is correct.
That's still the same, and it's,
That is correct, yes.
and then what about the weight of the,
I was getting to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They're
We got off track.
actually recommending the weight be changed to a 60-40 split. It was a 70-30 split prior. After speaking with the Civil Service Commission, they feel for supervisory positions that the oral side of the interview process is probably more important on a supervisory scale. Not more important, but should be weighted higher than what it was in the past. So they'd like to change that to a 60-40 split. So basically, how it works is, if an officer takes the promotion test and they pass the written test with a 70%, and they would proceed to the oral side of the testing. They would then in turn get the oral side done. They would have to pass the oral side with an 80% of the testing. And then those numbers for the eligibility list only are calculated 60% on the written side, 40% on the oral side.
now the 80% for the oral passing?
Yes.
Is that what it's been?
That is what it's been, yes.
But before, it was 80% for the written as well, to even get to the point where you could take the oral.
Correct.
So we're lowering the written. Okay, I got it now. And then, but now also then once you get past that, then once you get both scores, then they're weighted differently
Right,
from.
for their eligibility
Got it.
list, they would still pass, but the eligibility list would be, their number, final number would be prepped from a 60-40 split of those two tests.
Okay. So some, okay, I got you. So
So-
someone theoretically could do better on the written exam than somebody else, or score higher, but based on the breakdown,
Correct.
they
Would
wouldn't
just
be the first
weighted
candidate. Okay.
Differently, correctly.
Any other questions or comments? I think that was good explanation. Mr. Dice.
Yes, the next ordinance is an ordinance authorizing the proper officials of Monroeville to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Police Department Wage and Policy Committee, providing for corrective language to clarify long-term disability benefits and extend the contract.
I think it's very clear on extending the contract, but can you maybe give us a brief explanation? What does that mean? Clarify
If
that.
you remember, what we had is, we had two cases that have gone on very recently. First, the Lawfer case, and then Mr. Bodnar, who has since passed away. These two cases have produced kind of a fly in the ointment of our present agreement, and I think at last week's wake, there was some discussion last Thursday about changing the long-term disability language. And as a product of that, our office put together some language, I think either Friday, Monday, Tuesday of this week. The final language on that was, I think, drafted today on the long-term disability.
Okay, well, again, I think everybody on council knew that. I just
Yeah.
wanted you to explain that to the.
Glad you thought so.
There was actually what Mr. Dice said, gray area between both sides. The union attorney and our attorneys, Mr. Dice's office, both agree that it needed to be clarified in the contract. So considering the lawsuit was over, we thought it was a good time to clarify that.
Any other?
I'm a little
questions or
confused on the extend the contract. Is that just for the long-term disability benefits?
No, actually, when we met with the union representatives, they have now offered a 0% three-year extension on the contract. And I wanted to bring that to council.
With no negotiations?
No negotiations. They want a 0% wage freeze across the board for 3 additional years. So I thought it was a good opportunity, and I wanted to present that to council.
Would that be a separate?
It's actually built right into the ordinance that you received this evening. You'll see it on.
I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. I could see you're asking for to clarify the long-term disability benefits, but and extend the contract. That's, I mean, without any negotiation or any talks, I find that shocking. But
And that was their union reps that presented that?
Yes. They would like to do a 0% wage increase up into the year of 2017. So that basically, it's a good opportunity for the municipality. It locks them in at 0%.
But there's other increases built into the contract, though, right?
There's a cost of living increase that's built into their contract, yes. But in past years, like if you look on page 8, in 2012, they received a 1% increase as well as their cost of living. And then they offset that in the following year at a 0%. So basically, they're coming to the municipality saying 0% until the year of 2017.
I'm okay with that. I understand what you're saying, but say any of the unions would come up and ask you that exact thing. You know, there's other things other than wages negotiated into a contract. So if you're taking a 0 increase.
It's
I mean,
council's pleasure, Councilman Duncan.
All I'm saying is there was no explanation, again, to this. I know it's council's pleasure, and I'm one of, 7.
Has the union put this to a vote, to the bargaining unit?
Yes, they did talk to their membership.
Did they vote on it, though? Not
I'm not 100% sure they voted or just spoke.
Well, I'm just got my old union hat on. I mean, I think that when I settled contracts, you have to have the membership vote on that. Can you check on that?
Yeah, I definitely will for Tuesday.
I mean, I think it's, it is what it is, but
And the potential's always there to make a counter offer. Even though that they are presenting this to us, we could always give a counter offer back to them if there's maybe some things that we would like to look into.
the pleasure up to you all.
Would that be, is that an executive session
Yes.
discussion? Okay. Perhaps that may be something for council to consider for Tuesday's meeting.
Any other questions or comments on this item before you, council? Mr. Dice?
Yes, the last ordinance is establishing a cell phone policy and a monthly stipend for employees.
And again, if you'll just give us a brief description.
Yes, we've kind of done a little study on our cell phone policy. We spend approximately $1,100 per month on our cell phone policy. We've looked into different ways of cutting costs in the municipality. The school district just recently did this about a year ago, and it's worked very well. They've gone with a stipend program. So basically, the policy attached explains the stipend program and who would be allocated phones at a rate of $30 a month that would be reimbursed to the employee. That basically would save us about $250 to $300 per month, and overall savings about $300 to $3,500 per year. In talking with staff members during the budget meetings, basically everyone shared the same concern. They don't want to carry 2 phones around. So we felt this was a good way to save the municipality money, get out of the cell phone business, and just go with a stipend. And there are requirements that the employee would have to produce to get their money each month or each quarter.
Questions or comments on this item before you, council?
I have a question, Mayor.
Sure.
So when it says which positions are eligible, for everyone that's listening, department heads, police supervisors, police detectives, public works foreman, animal control officer, and then key staff, and then they're listed. The key staff that are listed, is that the end-all list? I know that it's mentioned in here that the manager can add to the list at any time, but as of now,
This is currently.
that's the current list.
Yes, that is correct.
I'd have some concerns, not concerns, but questions if, being on the Recreation Advisory Board, I know that Mr. Estock and Mrs. Morris, they do a lot of traveling with the parks, with their different programs, and they're not listed on there. I mean, I think, so I guess it's council's pleasure, but I mean, employees that are out traveling, I mean, that are essentially on call. I think rec department, there's a couple individuals there that are out for their different day programs, pool and whatnot. And also just thinking through some of the other workers, in TV15, Mr. Balsick, I know he travels a lot for different things. So I don't know what the process is of adding people to it. If that's something that you would just consider,
We
or?
would take that under consideration, yes.
Okay. Well, I just want to throw that out to council as far as thinking about those positions as well.
On the average cell phone, well, I guess it depends on what plan you have, but the $30 to offset, I guess this would be, your personal cell phone. You're being reimbursed similar to the way that they call telephone, telegraph for us to give us a stipend for our internet and our fax and phone calls. $30 from the total bill, I guess proportionally is about half of mine. So I don't know if that it would be unlimited. Does that sound like a reasonable amount? It sounds very reasonable amount in terms of $30 offsetting each month.
Well, I'm actually, I don't know if maybe we're talking about the same thing or
Yeah,
not. I'm
but-
actually talking about the people who are eligible for that.
Right.
I think anyone who's employed by the municipality who we're asking them to travel and to be out, I mean, those are the people that we should be considering.
And
I
if you're
think-
taking a look
I
at how
think-
that affects that usage there is what I'm thinking. If it really, if they got unlimited, maybe it doesn't matter, it's just a wash with what they normally pay, but trying to get the process of who might be eligible for that, maybe.
Well, probably everybody on this list probably has, I mean, almost, I don't want to say, almost everybody probably on this list has probably unlimited minutes. I mean, that's unlimited data, I mean, for the most part, so.
Yeah.
Either you reevaluate the ones you have on here, or you actually look into, like, all the positions that possibly are traveling. But
Yeah,
that is
okay.
for council to consider.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments there, Council? Moving over to our reports of our officials, and Lynette, you have the biggest one.
Actually, I'm just going to defer mine till Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. Mr. Dice?
There is one listed on mine, that's the Attorney General's letter. Has everybody seen it? Is that
actually-
news to anybody?
Yeah.
Has everybody
it's new.
seen it?
It just
They got it?
came, so it's news to
Okay.
everybody.
Yeah.
There has been a complaint to the Attorney General concerning our harvesting or our timbering ordinance. The Attorney General has a process when that happens, that they issue what I'll consider kind of a form letter, and that's the form letter that you got. It kind of indicates, look, they're looking into this, they're going to take a look at our ordinance and determine whether or not they think there's anything wrong with it. I will suggest to you that we've looked at it, and we are prepared to respond to the Attorney General. I wouldn't fret about it. It's just a process that has to go on. I believe your ordinance is constitutional. I believe it isn't preempted, especially when it comes to landslides and the criteria that are set forth, steep slopes. Those are legitimate reasons to turn down any timbering, and I think the Attorney General's office is going to be very hard-pressed to do anything about that, even if they wanted to. But that doesn't stop the process from going on. This may take a while, as the letter indicates, so as we hear anything, we'll certainly advise you.
Thank you, sir. Clarence, we'll start off with you.
Good.
Steve?
Oh, again, just my deepest sympathy to the McAllister family for their loss, and that's all I have tonight.
Diane?
I'm going to actually also extend my sincere condolences to the McAllister family, Bill, who was a Monroeville detective, and also to the entire police department and having lost there was two recent deaths for people they actually work with, so I extend to them as well. And I also would like to correct an error that I stated last month for the civil service law and its effect on police layoffs. The Borough Code was amended in 2008 to state that layoffs would be made from the eligible people to retire. The 2010 amendment clarified how they went about going through the retirements, and it was who was oldest in age, not seniority. And then the 2012 amendment that became effective July 16th actually went to last hired. So I wanted to make that correction. Also, at the Convention or Visitors Bureau, through the Monroeville Convention Center, we have the Military Antiques Extravaganza coming up this weekend, October 4th and 5th. It's $12, and children under 12 are free. International Gem and Jewelry Show, October 11th through 13th. $8 for adults, good for all 3 days of the show. If you have military ID, it's free, and no children under 8 are allowed. The Westpac's Job Fair, October 16th, $10 walk-in fee. The Fall Pan Coin Show, October 24th through 26th, admission is free. And the Showmaster's Gun Show, October 26th and 27th, $9 for adults, and children under 12 are free. And also, I wanted to bring to anyone's attention who might be looking for a part-time job, Visit Monroeville is looking for part-time shuttle drivers. You have to have a CDL license, Class A license. They're primarily, they're needed for nights and weekends, and the rate of pay is $15 an hour, and you can contact Sean Logan at the Monroeville visit Monroeville at 412-856-7422. Again, mostly they're looking for nights and weekends, and you do have to have a CDLA Class A license. That's all.
Yes, sir. Briefly, I'd just like to thank everybody that helped me, even though the mayor cleanup day was postponed due to rain. I already had a crew lined up. We did it the following day. And this is my 4th trip of walking down that hill on Northern Pike and back up. Half a mile down is easy, half a mile back up's a pain in the rear end. But let me tell you this, 4 times I've done it. I go up and down that hill on average 3 or 4 times a day. It doesn't even look like I did anything. People should be ashamed of themselves. But anyway, thanks for all the help.
Thank you, sir. Lois?
Yes, Mayor. Taking from what Jim just said, that's the value of having volunteers, that you can't get people to do it, you got to have people who do volunteer. And there are organizations out there like the Monroeville Foundation that have in their charter and their mission to help people even beautify their neighborhoods that way. This is what we did. Remember the Friends to Neighbor, or Strangers to Friends, Friends to Neighbors, what was an initiative that the mayor had from a couple years back, really did turn into some of those things. There's some money out there, and they're willing to give it to people who come up to have an idea. Not to say that it would be a stormwater fix-all, be-all, but similar to what was done off of Logan's Ferry Road. If neighbors want to get together and do things that beautify the neighborhood, but they could also do stormwater management with that particular section of the neighborhood, if they have a plan and if they have a budget and they approach the Monroeville Foundation helps people volunteer to do things like that. And the nice thing about it is there's money there to do it. It's already existing, and it's just a matter of getting your qualifications back. And I'm really happy with what they did. And I always say this wrong, Meadowdale. It's Meadowdale. That's off of Logan's Ferry, not Meadowbrook. Sorry. But they did that. So, and speaking of the People's Republic of Vegetables, they also had the goodwill to accept people who donated money so that that garden could go and feed 4 food banks. And so far this year, in past years, we've had 500 times 2 years, 1,000 pounds, and we're up to about 370 pounds now. So, if we don't reach 500 this year due to the tomato blight, at least we have fed 4 food banks with that. And I don't think that has to do with leftist or rightist. I think that just has to do with goodwill. Let me just give you some information on the senior center, because the monthly schedule and the calendar for October will include bingo this Saturday at 1 p.m. There's a $500 jackpot, take all, and lunch is always served from 12 to 12:30 prior to bingo. There are also many things that are coming up for trips and tours. Some of them are totally sold out, but I wanted to remember people to a senior center trips and tours called Meadows Casino Trip. And the Meadows trip is Thursday, October 17th. $24 per person includes a $15 slot play, $5 food credit, and a bus driver's tip. So that's all there for you. Please contact the senior center. They did extend some of the registration for this, and Tara circled it for me today, so I know that they're still dealing with it. Please call the senior center. Please go by the senior center. And speaking of a third way that you could volunteer, seniors have a senior council, and that takes a great deal of their time and energy, and it's a well-knit group. Met with them today, their monthly meeting. But they also need volunteers at some of the functions. For instance, the bingo I just got through telling you about, and other functions that have to do with entertainment, food, the Halloween bash, anything like that coming up. If you want to volunteer somewhere, volunteer some of your time for the senior center, because it pays you back. There's not only people there with age-specific places to work out and keep fit, but also activities that are very, very instrumental to quality of life. I just want to think of another way to volunteer. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Nick?
I would just like to wish my wife a happy 10-year anniversary. That's all I have for this evening.
How about you?
She hasn't got rid of you then, huh?
No. She deserves those applause.
Could I mention one more thing?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
done. That's all I have to
Do you want
say.
to mention it more?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Monroeville Historical Society presents its Heritage Day Festival, Saturday, October the 12th, from 1 until 5 p.m. See demonstrations, enjoy hearing music. Many people know about this already. There's no admission charge. There are a lot of fun activities, corn husking dolls, playing a fishing game, painting pumpkins, making a scarecrow, use laundry washboards and clotheslines, see how wool is spun, eat popcorn popped in a fireplace, taste popular lamb cake, churn butter. So you get to churn the butter, bake the bread, and then sample both of them with apple cider. There'll be a tour at the 1800s McGinley House and the 1790s Macaulay Log House. The directions, McGinley and Macaulay Log Historical Houses, please contact me if you actually need these directions, but this is 2381 McGinley Road, or you can call the municipality. Again, October the 12th, 1 until 5 p.m., Heritage Day Festival. Thank you.
And I'll wrap it up with, once again, to the McAllister family, heartfelt condolences. Again, such a loss to Monroeville. Mac was a great guy, and Mac, his dad, you're the best, and my heart goes out to you and your whole family. It's very sad, very sad. Sad for Monroeville. On the cleanup day, Jim, thank you for getting your crew out there. It was the right call. If you remember that day, it really rained like cats and dogs. And for those of you that did go out at a later date, we do appreciate it. Obviously, I would have liked to have pulled that off, but didn't quite work out that way. But hopefully back in the spring, we'll get everybody back out there and clean up Monroeville. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, Mr. Shufo and I was at the CCAC today. They have a great symposium that went on the financial impact of blight, and if you're not familiar with that term, and also on land banking. For those of you that have volunteered to work with Mark and I in regards to our initiative about cleaning up our neighborhoods, this is just more, I'll be very honest with you, Mark and I are really getting ourselves educated so we can educate you, our volunteers, appropriately. Much deeper than, again, I anticipated. I'm sure Mark knew much more than I did, but we're working in conjunction with our COG here, but it's also the two other COGs. They're calling it the COG initiative. We're working with 41 communities, which is going to be very beneficial to Monroeville. We don't have a huge problem of blight or abandoned homes, but it's like anything else. It's like a cancer. If you don't address it early, it will get worse. There's a map out that we'll try to maybe have for you all to take a look. It's pretty shocking when you look at our 41 communities on the problem out there. And the good news is Fitzgerald, our county exec, Dr. Martoni, our county Allegheny County Council president, certainly are backing us to the hilt on that. And again, it's a lot of good work's going to be done on this, and it will benefit Monroeville. And my last comment is Lori, I want to just thank you for bringing that out. And Mr. Yakum, I would hope, since you can throw me under the bus, I think it's only fair that I can get my little comment in as well. I would hope that you would donate that $150 a month either to the fire department and or to whatever you owe to your tax issue. In regards to blaming me for allowing residents to speak their piece, as long as I sit here as your mayor, I don't think anything was out of control. I think you have a right to come up and address council on any issue, even if I don't personally like to hear it. That is your right, that's constitutional, and I will not bend on that issue. Now, obviously, if you're out of control and up there swearing or threatening, you will be removed and probably prosecuted. And as far as the threat with Lynette, it was stated very clearly by Mr. Smith. Whoever the guilty party is, I assure you, if we find them out, the full extent of the law will go on there. Mr. Yakem seemed to think I didn't take that personally or didn't take it professionally enough. I am not a police officer, but I can assure you I would stand whatever power this office does represent, prosecute whoever would threaten, not just Lynette, anybody up here or any of you. That's unacceptable behavior. It's not appropriate and it won't be tolerated under any condition. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Well, you know what, Council, let's hold off on that if you'll withdraw. I'd like we're going to have an executive session.
I can't be there.
Brief, it's a very brief one. It is very important that we all go.
I can't be there unless, why do we have to have that?
It's about a 2-minute long version.
I'll remove my second.
What about doing it on Tuesday?
I removed the second.
I'm sorry?
I removed my second from the adjournment.
I ask you.
Would you be comfortable with that information given to you on Tuesday?
If it's 2 minutes, I'll do it. It's a long story. I have some,
No, I don't need to know that. I mean, is it going to be?
I'll remove
No,
I'll
not
remove
longer
the
than 2
adjournment if
minutes.
it's just going to be a quick thing.
We don't even have to.
Okay, so a motion's in order to go in executive session about what?
Legal and personnel.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, sir.
No.
No.